Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself. And I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
And hello, Angela.
Hello, Erin. Hello, Kimberly.
Thanks for joining in on our secret thing.
I like how we all moved up closer and talked into a different voice.
We just started doing that on our first episode.
And now we do it every time, yeah.
We do it every time. We just like it. When we did it with Billy just sort of watched us and he was like, hi. It's like so thank you for joining in.
You betcha.
And I love that we pre-talked for 20 minutes.
I know. The worst habit ever. Like, just press the record button and let's move on. Well, because this is the only time we get to see each other and chat. And like, people are literally just listening to a conversation between three girls who love their freaking dogs.
So, CBD oil, mushrooms, gosh, all this natural, beautiful stuff. I'm actually going to start with an out of left field question because it's something that I just started learning about, and that is adaptogens. So can you tell us about adaptogens?
You bet. Adaptogens are my favorite. You're going to hear me talking about them a lot. And what they are is they are plants or fungi that have these medicinal properties that when we take them or we give them to our pets, when you put 3 or 4 of them together, they become even more synergistic and more powerful. So I had a little bit of knowledge of this with like certain plants, like a lot of the essential oils. I knew a lot about essential oils before I got into cannabis. That's why cannabis made so much sense. I was like, wait a minute, this is just another oil being pulled from a flower and it has all these incredible, this makes sense. This makes sense to me. So that's why in my tinctures, I always combined other botanicals with them, which nobody else did because they didn't understand how, when you put them together. But now that I started getting into studying mushrooms is when I realized even putting different types of mushrooms together, which mushrooms are adaptogens, makes them more powerful and synergistic. So yeah, putting herbs, plants, sometimes it's a tree root or sap. They just have these properties in them that make them more synergistic, more powerful. So they're called, they belong to a group of plants that they call adaptogens. Well, I'm sorry, fungi is not a plant nor animal. It's its own thing. So plants and fungi. And cannabis I put in that category. It has not been put in that category technically because nobody's been allowed to really study it or, so a lot of the herbalists don't consider it an adaptogen, but to me, it is the king of all adaptogens because of how well it works with other herbs and botanicals.
So you say it as fungi. I actually had it written in my notes here. How do we say it? Because I hear other people say fungi, and then I'm always afraid I'm going to embarrass myself.
It's definitely fungi.
Okay.
I know that much for sure. Or medicinal mushrooms. So when we're talking about mushrooms, there's people sometimes when we start talking about them, when you're especially talking about them with cannabis, they're thinking of the psychedelic kind. So when we're talking about cannabis and mushrooms, we're talking about the medicinal kind, not the psychedelic kind. But I'm sure the psychedelic probably works at some point on dogs, and one day we'll get around to figuring out how it helps them like it helps people. But for now, I'm concentrating on those that work a lot like cannabis does, help cannabis become even more powerful. Several of them have compounds that have anti-tumor, anti-cancer properties. I'm actually working on an ultimate guide where I've listed out the most common cancers and ailments that dogs suffer from, and then teamed up what mushrooms, serve that. And what's great is that mushrooms haven't been, prohibited like they had like cannabis. So they have been doing research this whole entire time on mushrooms. Japan has an anti-cancer drug made out of turkey tail compounds out of the turkey tail mushroom. So it, to me, when Nina, my Doberman, got cancer is when I really hunkered down on finding my 5 favorites and sourcing them and using them. I really feel like the combination of the cannabis, the mushrooms, and that ketogenic diet is what kept her cancer from spreading for over 2 years. There's no doubt in my mind, because there were so few other people. There's nobody that I found that did that. So that's why every time I could find somebody who was a holistic vet that went, wait, how long? Are you sure it's osteosarcoma? Positive, So yeah, you can't deny it. When you see it work on your own animals, you can't deny the power of plants and fungi.
So when it comes to mushrooms, I see tinctures and I see the powder supplements. Mm-hmm. Which do you prefer and why?
Well, the powdered supplements aren't all created equal. So powdered, the biggest problem is that there's literally now there's one company doing it right. And then there's other companies who are using that company's product as their product, which white labeling or whatever you want to call it. But there literally is only one person doing it, one company doing it right that I have found. And what's happening is that people grind up the entire mushroom, or they grow the mushroom on a substrate and they grind that entire thing up. And what you actually want is, just like the cannabis plant, is you want the medicinal properties extracted from the mushroom, and then that is dried up. Right. So when we talk about mushroom powders, then what we're really talking about is mushroom extract powders, not just the mushroom ground up. If you end up with a mushroom that's just ground up, or let's say you grow your own mushrooms and you dry them and you grind them up, you still have to extract the medicinal properties out of them, which you can do yourself with hot water. Oh. So this is something that you can do yourself. The reason that I stopped using the powders and why I ended up developing my own is because the one place that's doing it right is growing them in China. And I actually had a problem sourcing them during COVID. So that's one of the problems that came into place. And they are bioaccumulators. So they suck everything out of the ground and air. And China is one of the most polluted countries on the earth. So I didn't like getting them from there and having to worry about that. Even though they test everything that comes in, I just still wasn't comfortable. Also, I was using 5 or 6 different types of mushrooms they didn't carry all of them. And when you put 5 or 6 extract powders into your dog's food or however, it becomes mud. Some of them are very bitter, like chaga and reishi are very bitter and they hate the taste. So it became kind of a mess and a nightmare. And I was like, really? Okay, let me go try to find extracts. Then I found the extracts, but they were in alcohol. And so went through the whole thing. It took me 2 years, finally sourced them, found them, because then I had to find, are they growing in the right place? Are they growing the right way? Are they wild crafted? Are they extracting them the same way? So literally what I did is I found the guy who was doing it right on the human side, and talk about a nerd. He is the king of mushroom nerds, and developed dog products. And I basically created 3 products to help my dogs that I needed it for right there. So CCD, Canine Cognitive Disorder, is the new monster that I'm tackling, because here I am, getting rid of dogs' cancers, stopping seizures, getting them up to walk again, and damn, dementia got them. Right. I lost 2 to dementia in the same year, 16-year-olds. So that's when I was like, ooh, I got to do something about this. So Lion's mane, I'm sure you've heard about. Reishi, unbelievable for the brain, protecting the brain. Cannabis is a neuroprotectant also. So combining those two, I literally can watch my 15-year-old who's about to turn 16 when he hasn't had his lion's mane, when he hasn't had, I call it clarity, his tincture, when he hasn't had it. I can literally see him. He loses interest in eating. And which is what they do. They literally forget how to eat and drink, which is how they end up dying. So created that for him. And then of course, Nina's cancer tincture of the favorite mushrooms together. And then breathe, when they start having heart and lung issues when they get older. So these are just were my favorites that I was using for them. So, it just made it easier for me to put it on their food or in their mouth than in a powder. A powder, when you're using one or two, super easy. Sprinkle it on the food. Great, done. I just have become a tincture person. I just love being able to put an oil. And if I did put a mushroom tincture in an alcohol, I don't know if you've ever given your dogs an alcohol tincture. They're really good at spitting most of it out.
Yeah.
And I learned that glycerin was a much better alternative, especially for dogs, and a great organic, all natural preservative for mushrooms. So that's what we used. Apple cider vinegar is also something, but I'm like, yeah, vinegar is great, but they do the same thing when I put apple cider vinegar in their mouth. That and get it spit all out, and you're like, did anything go in? So that's the difference between the mushroom powders and the tinctures. It's just, preferring, and I could get a lot more dosage in a liquid than in a powder kind of thing.
Yeah.
So of course everybody knows you from CBD dog health. And so yes, now you've launched, it's called MycoDog, right? The mushroom formulas. And I love, you have the logo where the nose looks like the mushroom. And I was just like, oh my God, I love that.
Oh, thank you.
And so you have the 3 different formulas, and I want to buy at least 2 of them, I think.
I will send them to you. I would love for you guys to try them out.
I know, I would love to.
One of my favorite things is when I'm able to send something out like this to you guys, is because you come back and go, oh my God, he stopped blah, blah, blah. I love finding out, because I try it. I've been using it on all my dogs and farm animals here to see what it works. But I love hearing about how it helps other dogs and other people with things. Because then I can use your story and be like, oh, well, Rodrigo had this ear thing, whatever it is. Because I learn they're adaptogens. That's what's so amazing, is that it's going to help things that I didn't even know about. I know I tell the story all the time with CBD dog health that, in the beginning, people would call and go, does it help with blah, blah, blah disease? And I'd be like, oh, what the hell blah, blah, blah disease is. So I'd Google blah, blah, blah disease and see that blah, blah, blah disease is the inflammation of the retina. Well, guess what? I know CBD gets rid of inflammation. So guess what? It's going to help the blah, blah, blah disease.
And what I liked about your products is because I know there are so many different types of mushrooms, and I don't know which ones do which. And I'm like,
I do.
This is perfect. She's already put them all together for me. This is what I need to know.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's so much like cannabis, because I did the same thing with cannabis, but you guys don't know that. Because we have a whole bunch of strains of cannabis, just like we have a whole bunch of different species of mushrooms. So I, on the back end, picked which strains were high in CBD, high in CBG. So when I see people coming out with products now going, we have a CBD product. I'm like, yeah, it's already in mine kind of thing. But you know what I'm saying? So it's knowing these things and then going, which ones help better, instead of just throwing them all on there. When our dogs get older, we want to limit the amount of supplements. We don't want to give them more than 5 or 6 supplements. It's too much. So being able to have something in one tincture, I mean, I would love to be able to put my cannabis and mushrooms in one tincture, which I did. You see, I have other adaptogens in the mushroom tinctures. I have ashwagandha and astragalus root and bicopa minor. I can never say mineri in it, which are some of the most powerful adaptogens out there. So that was one of the like things in the beginning when someone would have a CBD oil and then have my CBD oil that has frankincense and turmeric in it. This is going to be a lot more powerful. Even if it had less hemp extract in it, it's going to be more powerful because you had those other two herbs on it. I feel like I keep going off on tangents. I'll shut up now.
Okay. I love it.
No, this is what we need to know.
And I appreciate it because that's the thing is, we can do all the research we can, but we're limited in what Google will let us look up. And there's so much misinformation out there or incomplete information. Because, like you, when Sydney was diagnosed with cancer and later Scout, I went on a research frenzy trying to understand. And I was trying to, keep an open mind and speak to as many people as possible. And you feel like you understand it, and then you speak to the next person and they turn everything completely around. And you're like, okay, so is this not good? Or it's just hard to really, truly understand. And one of the questions that I've often had when it comes to some of these supplements that are being put out there is how much do I need to give for it to actually make a difference? Because they have the dosage on the container, but this is just sort of like a dosage to maintain my dog's health. And I don't think that many of these supplements are really meant for a sick dog. You don't go on Chewy.com and find supplements for dogs with cancer.
I'm glad that you said this because the other thing that makes me so upset is the mushroom company that I loved came out with a pet line. And so I was like, oh, cool. I can't wait to see how they came up with what they were doing. Because I talked to them 3 years ago at HVMA and they're like, yeah, we're working on a pet line. But of course, we're using their human stuff. But they didn't. All they did, which a lot of companies do, is they took the human and just cut it in half. Well, that doesn't work. Yeah. So now I have a product that's less potent, less effective, just because we don't know what it does to dogs. Well, you used to heard Karen Becker, who was at Healthy Dog, who was like, it's a mushroom. It literally, it's out in nature. You literally cannot overdose or take too much. They're water. Of course, there's the poisonous ones that we want to stay away from, but there's no fear and taking too many or it being too much. So why would they do that? It's just like an unknown. And this is a trusted, wonderful product. So it is really difficult. I'm only out to find the best product and the most potent product for an animal. The same thing with CBD. What good is a bottle that's only 250 milligrams, 350 milligrams? When I know because of research shows us 12 milligrams is going to help calm a dog down. 12 milligrams is going to relieve arthritic pain. So that's how much we'll make one dose, not having to give them 5 doses, which you now have given them a whole bunch of coconut oil and a whole bunch of hemp seed oil, and you're probably going to get diarrhea or they're going to barf or like you did with your dog and you got the horse tincture because it was a lot more powerful because you need a lot more medicine. But that's what's beautiful about these all natural things. You cannot overdose. You cannot overdo it and hurt them. And that's what I love. And you can't say that about a synthetic drug.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. So let's talk about CBD oil. I mean, I have so much on my mind. Let's talk about CBD oil. And so as you said, I went for the horse one because I have a dog with cancer. I have a dog that is geriatric and, he's still doing great, but I want to get him onto a regular product in anticipation of him declining. So being
proactive. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, one thing that's I've learned just from having a dog with cancer. And I'm laughing right now because I created a meme. It was a very distasteful meme. It was after Will Smith slapped Chris Rock.
Uh-huh.
And I created a meme where Chris Rock was a raw feeder and Will Smith is cancer, because that when I saw everyone making these memes, that was the first thing that came to my head, is that so many people who are raw feeders and they get that cancer diagnosis, we're just like, but I'm a raw feeder. I don't understand.
Right.
This can't be the case. And it does, it sneaks up on you. So from that, even though I thought I was being proactive, and I think the reason why Scout is doing so well is because of the choices I've made for him.
Oh, heck yeah.
But it just made me want to go even further with all of my other dogs. And so I love the CBD oil of the horse for Rodrigo and Scout. And then I have the CBD oil, just a regular one for dogs for my other two dogs. But one thing that we talked about on another episode, but is about the dosage and the fact that, there isn't a set dosage for, if your dog weighs between 30 and 50 pounds, give them this many drops or this much, this many times a day. And can you talk to us more about just figuring out what works for your dog?
Yeah. And when we're talking about cancer, what's beautiful is that we already have research on cancer and full CBD and full spectrum hemp extract and how it works. So we know that between 50 and 100 milligrams is what's recommended for both seizures and cancer. So that makes it easy for when you're doing the small heel, it's literally like 1 dropper or 2 droppers, or with the ease, it's a half, depending on how much you're going to give, a half a dropper. So that is really important. I want to bring up a point where you said you want to be more proactive. So, Nina, my Doberman with osteosarcoma. So it's like 1 in 4 large breed dogs is going to get osteosarcoma.
Wow. So
this is a genetic cancer. So it didn't matter what I fed her. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't use paper towels in my house, much less laundry detergent or candles or plugins or weed or anything. Like, it is natural. So I felt the same way. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? So, and then I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to take what I learned and apply it. But from now on, in my opinion, to be proactive, every large breed dog should start taking a full spectrum hemp extract after age 1. I said that to Dr. Josie, and she said, why age 1? Give it to him right away. And I'm like, that's true. Yeah. Because why not? If we know 1 in however many dogs, I don't even know what the statistic is going to get cancer, and we know 1 in 4 large breeds is, why not be proactive and start doing these other things? It was kind of like when it came back, her blood test after 22 months came back and said that she was low in vitamin D and B12. And I'm like, how in the hell is that possible? That dog eats more sardines. And then Dr. Sarah Urban said the cancer is pulling those nutrients away. That's why she's showing low. So it makes sense. But yeah, what was it? And after World War II, we have like 80,000 different chemicals that have made it into our food system and into our personal care products. And that's the human side of things. The dog side, the pet side, where nobody is regulating and making sure that they're safe, I can't even imagine what's in there. So we literally are bombarded from all sides from it. It's called epigenetics, where it is our environment that is we're doing everything right, but one thing can sneak in and cause that our bodies to react. But guess what? We have something that's all natural that we can take or give to our dogs that will battle it or help your body battle it. That's what I tell everybody, is like, that's the biggest thing that it does, is that it helps your body or your dog's body fight off whatever's wrong, along with the fact that it's doing all these other things. We talked about at the Healthy Dog Workshop, Dr. Kendra Pope talked about the 12 pathways of cancer. Mm-hmm. And between cannabis and medicinal mushrooms, they interact with all 12 of those pathways. Mm-hmm. So to me, You do that in a diet and you're halfway there. You are really making a difference. And the earlier that you can catch it or the more proactive you can be, by all means. So if it's like a maintenance dose, then, I would say 5 to 10 milligrams every day, meaning your dog has nothing. He's not even anxious or stressed. I would give him 5 to 10 milligrams every day. If they are a senior citizen, meaning they're 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, they're going to start getting some degeneration just like we do, whether it's in our joints or our immune system or whatever it is. So I would do at least 12 milligrams, 12 to 20 milligrams every day just to keep that inflammation down, to keep disease away. And if you do already have a dog that is suffering from something, then that's when you start getting really up there. So 42 milligrams to 100 milligrams, depending on what your dog is suffering from. So I've had 6-pound Chihuahua that was 18 years old that I had to give 100 milligrams a day of the heel to keep grand mal seizures from happening. Mm-hmm. So, it depends. Nina, as you know, was getting at least 100 milligrams of the horse ease a day, and then 10 milligrams of THC at night. So every dog is different. And if you're battling cancer, you need to give them a lot. And it's funny because even she got that the entire time, even after her amputation. 2 weeks, we didn't do it. And then we started it up again because we know the cancer's still in there just because the tumor's been removed. And actually what I learned more than anything is removing the tumor made everything get real angry and aggressive. So if this were to happen to me again, which I hope it doesn't, but if it does, I will probably go even harder and give her more after the amputation than I did before.
And so it's okay to experiment. Like it's okay and that we're not going to do harm.
Nope.
They just might get a little sleepy.
Exactly. That's what's so wonderful about it is that you find your dog's dose. You know that the anxiety and stress is away because they've calmed down. You know the pain is gone because they're acting like themselves again and they're playing and they're running up the stairs or jumping on the couch. And with something like cancer, you're going, okay, I'm at 26 months and I was given 4 months, so something's going right.
I love it. I mean, Scout's still doing great, and it's funny because what surprised me most is that, all this time in, his oncologist is just like, you do what you want to do, because his lymph nodes got bigger and she was like, do you want to, because I wanted to stretch out his chemo. And it's like, I don't like bringing him in there every week. It's stressful to him. It's stressful to me. It's not good for his immune system. And having all these chemicals flowing through this body, I don't feel comfortable with it. And she's like, well, his lymph nodes can grow. And it's like, and then we'll attack him a different way. And that's when I got a holistic vet and let her know this is what I want to do. And she's like, okay, then this is what we'll do. But what astounds me is that, when
he's got something to say about it.
So what astounds me is how, cooperative everyone is. I expected, when I first met my oncologist.
Well, you're in a good state.
Yeah. Yeah. And, because she's familiar with raw feeding. She wanted me to stop feeding raw. And I just said, okay. And I think she knew, okay, she's not going to stop feeding raw. And, but his first round when he went into remission and stayed in remission for 4 months longer than what she expected. And he did better than any of the other dogs she was treating. She was just sort of like, she just trusts me. And, and it's just, and I love that feeling of, she's just going to let me, she's there to guide me and give me her thoughts and based on her experience and education, but it's ultimately my decision. And I know that that's the case with all veterinarians, but there's sometimes I feel fear or uncertainty because of their reaction or response, where she's just sort of like, okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, you said that it's that way with most veterinarians, and I'm going to have to disagree with you. So I live in a state that's a lot different than your state. And the only reason that we even have a lot of these vets even talking about it is because for over 5, 6 years now, they're hearing one person after another going, this is what I did. It helped my dog. This is what I did. I helped my dog. And some have decided to learn and actually prescribe it, and others don't want to hear it. But even the holistic vet that I went to get Nina's leg amputated, because the vet that was treating Nina was Dr. Sarah Urban, who lives near you.
Yeah.
It's Billy's vet, Lua's vet. So, and, you know, then the 3 or 4 that I call on the phone to get 4 different opinions. And it's so funny because they always say the same thing. So I love that. But I had to find someone local to do the amputation. The first vet didn't even, that I drove 3 hours away, wouldn't amputate it because she's 10 years old and a geriatric and considered the top, and that she wouldn't make it. So they wouldn't even do it. Not a good candidate. So now I go another 6 months and it's just getting bigger. I have to amputate it now. It's cutting off blood supply. So I find somebody, I ask her, all I want you to do is the amputation. Do you have somebody? Yes. Even there, I was pressured. You should have seen what I was pressured into. Even though you're standing looking at a dog that I have kept alive with the most deadly cancer. Her leg is still attached at 22 months, and I still have to fight with you to go, please don't do this, don't do that, don't. It was a complete knockdown, drag out fight.
Such a disappointment too. And you're right. I live in a good area, because even, you know, at our, like the chain vet clinics, if a dog owner, pet parent, if we can show them that, you know, no, I am doing my homework, I am responsible, and have a conversation, I have changed the mind of so many veterinarians here locally.
That's awesome.
And just explaining, this is what I do. This is how I feed my dogs. This is how I make sure I'm meeting their nutritional needs. This is what I'm doing here. And it's basically just by showing, like, see how healthy this dog is. And they're not advocates for raw or for holistic things, but their attitude is, well, I trust you that you know what you're doing. And I think the thing that's unfortunate is, you know, many of them tell me, I just don't trust that my clients will follow through on all the things that they need to do. And it's just like, are you giving them a chance? Are you giving them the tools?
And I get it. I get that, you know, they're going to get a lot of the Google doctors and came in and tell them this or that. And I understand that completely, but you can't deny when a dog has broken records. Mm-hmm. What that turned into for me was, it must not be osteosarcoma. So then I went out and proved. I had her leg sent off so that I could prove that it was osteosarcoma. So then I kept track of every vet that, you know, looked at me like I was crazy, didn't believe me. And I sent them an email saying, this is what it is. Here's the diagnosis. This is what I just wanted to share it with you. If you have any questions, let me know. I love it. 3 wrote me back. And I would say it was probably 50, both conventional, integrative, and whatever that I wrote, going, just want to share Nina's whole story. This is what happened. This is what we did. Here's the full protocol. Here's the diagnosis so that you can't tell me it's not osteosarcoma. It's sad. I mean, I have people, you know, we do consultations. It'll be me and Dr. Sarah or Dr. Zach. And it's a lot of times it's people, either they got that cancer diagnosis or they want to get off the pharmaceuticals. They want to get off the Apoquil or whatever it is. And we help them get off of it. And people will literally go, well, I took my dog in who has osteosarcoma of like the nasal and bone. So the tumor's growing here. We've had several of those. Wow. And it grows fast. And it's like, you give them CBD cannabis and it just kind of stays. And then it starts slowly going down, or the growth stops. And they bring their dog into the vet and the vet's like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. This is incredible. And they're like, yeah, it's CBD oil. And they're like, great, keep it up. See you next week. I'm like, how do you not go, what is it? I need to learn about it. I want to know.
That's what's so funny. It's like, I'm not a vet or anything. Erin and we're just like, guess what I did? I mean, I tag her. It's like when I sent off a stool
A
sample.
poop sample, yeah.
To another to a company, and I am outside with the gloves, and I took a picture of what, and I tagged her in it because it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so exciting. Has it come back? I mean, we get so excited about just anything whenever I hear someone doing something, just because, I don't know, I just figured out maybe I'll give this a try. I had this at the house and I figure I'll give it a try. And guess what? This is what I saw. It's so much fun.
You know what's even funner is when you have vets that you can talk to about this.
Oh yes.
Like that's how I am with Josie and with Sarah or whatever. I mean, you should have, this vet that I got the amputation done, she put a port in my dog's neck.
Oh.
Because she wanted to do some sort of vitamin therapy bullshit. So I only took her back 2 days, and then I'm like, I can't go back to this woman. So literally Sarah's on the phone telling me how to take out stitches. We were about to open the neck up, and I was about to pull the damn port out myself. Like we were ready to do it. It was in the jugular.
Yeah. Like I had one when I had cancer. Yeah.
So it was here and went through, the vein or whatever. But I'm constantly like writing Sarah and going, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And she's like, okay, just do this, this, and this. Make sure you do this, this. She doesn't care. She knows I'm a crazy person. And I love that, because she knows I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Both when Sydney and when Scout had cancer, I think, especially with Scout, I think the reason why I just didn't get scared. I mean, I wasn't happy about it, but I was like, I got this, was because my dog's main vet, Dr. Goodry, said to me, you got this. She's like, your dogs are raw fed. You are so anal about everything, and you look into everything. And she's like, you are, they're going to tell you, she's like, you're going to go to the oncologist and they're going to tell you, you have this much time and you have this. She's like, that is for the typical kibble fed dog. She's like, your dogs are not typical dogs, so you cannot take that in. And that's always stuck with me.
Well, when people go, oh, raw feeding is so expensive and da-da-da, and you go, oh yeah, but in the end, later, you're going to be glad. That's when you're turning in that token that you did everything right, so that your dog's chances are going to be better. Yeah. So, yep, that's when you know that it was worth it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important to talk about this, because I think a lot of people think like, well, I'm not a vet, or, what do I know? Or, and it's easy to get intimidated. I mean, I had a vet call me a witch doctor because I wanted to take my dog with cancer, and do different treatments than what he wanted to do. And, and it's like, I'm literally being called names here, so I get why people get intimidated to make these different decisions. And I think it's important for Kimberly and I to share on the podcast and to bring on more people that are, because you're not a veterinarian, you're an expert. Like, it's okay to do these things. It's okay to try these things. It's okay to keep looking for a vet, even if it's an online consult that you can do, to find somebody, who's going to back up what you're doing. Because it makes a difference for your dog. And that's really what matters.
There's a lot of vets out there that'll work with your vet. So you can just be like, here's someone who's at your level and has education. You guys can have that conversation and get my vet here locally on track so that we can do this together. And
or get like I tell, because we have so few, get the blood work, get the x-rays, and then you literally can have telehealth with your favorite holistic vet anywhere in the country now. So there's really no excuses. To me, that is such a godsend, because I don't have anybody around here that I can take or that I can suggest people. So all I can do is go here, get the blood work, get the x-rays, and then go back over to them, and they'll be able to read it, tell you what to do. Like, even when I took the blood work from the one vet and had Sarah read it, completely two different things, completely, the end of the world versus, oh, Angie, that's because the cancer's taking it. Just give her more sardines, whatever it is, versus we have to give her this and this and this and this. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We just amputated her leg. Let's slow down here, ladies. Yeah. But yeah, I think if you're one of those pet parents that likes to take your dog's health and your health, I've learned so much about my health through my dogs. I take all dog supplements because they're the best.
Yeah.
It's so intertwined. I mean, even like my own journey with wellness has been so like I learned to do better for me, and it helps me do better for the dogs, and it's been very intertwined that way. And
yeah, it's really interesting how they take little pieces out of things and make it a drug, and you're like, okay, but if I took that whole flower extract, I would get that compound and then all the other things that go with it that would probably help it work even better. Yeah. Now that I understand how plant medicines work, it's not to say that we're not going to get to a point where we know that the isolate of CBG treats this specific thing perfectly. Yeah, we'll definitely get that way. I mean, I hope we do. All I see now at cannabis conferences is them. Here we go, Erin. I'm not kidding you, Erin. I'm going to one this weekend. I'm laughing because last time I told her this story was that they're creating synthetic cannabinoids now.
Oh, good gravy.
And which they've already been doing, but they're not creating them to like make CBD even better as a anti-seizure drug. No, it's about how high you could possibly get.
Gravy.
So, last time I was talking to her, I was going, THCX, see how high you can get. That's like that type of shit.
And Tim like quotes that all the time.
We had a CBD expo here in Seattle several years ago, and I went to it. I was so excited to go. I contacted them because I don't want to pay. I'm a blogger. I can write about it. And they're like, oh yeah, come on down. Here's your pass. And I showed up and was stunned because first, most of the booths didn't know that dogs could have CBD.
No.
I mean, and the booths that did, they just started making a CBD, and it was more of a white label thing,
right?
Where they wanted to, so I walked away with tons of free products. So I'm not going to turn down free, but I was blown away. And I was asking the questions, and back then I was still, somewhat new to CBD oil, and I'm asking these questions, and I was just blown away by the fact that not many people could answer the questions. There were two booths where one booth was actually specific for pets, and this guy was very sharp. And then another booth, he did have a pet line, and I loved it because one of the CBD oils had bacon flavoring, and they were like, and we actually use bacon. And I was just like, oh, but I was just like, I'm not giving it to my dogs.
How do you keep the bacon from?
I don't believe you. I don't believe
getting stank.
Exactly. I don't believe you. But it was just sort of like, okay. And, but he was still very, seemed to know what he was talking about when it came to CBD products. But most of the expo, even though it was CBD, was, bongs and pipes and
gummies and gummies and gummies and gummies.
It was mostly about, getting high. And,
right.
I'm just sort of like, but it's CBD.
Yeah. It's just code now that, you're going to do it. So yeah, now they're incorporating everything is cannadelic and, incorporating the mushrooms and psychedelics too. But I mean, I always get a good audience because if people are there for their health and wellness and have pets and they go, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. Those are the best people. But yeah, I do get the ones that are there that'll go, well, I don't want to get my dog high. Yeah. That's not what I'm here to talk about.
I love that in my ringtone.
She has the best voices.
Just me coming out of your pocket going,
I don't want to get my dog high.
Yeah, I've been to so many conferences where I've had to sit. I've been on panels where I've had to sit with veterinarians pretending to talk about and know what they're talking about. And I've just been like, oh my God, no, that's not how it works at all. That's not how it works
I've done that with raw feeding. And I've sat on panels with veterinarians about raw feeding. And one panel, it was a weekend and it was every 2 days. And veterinarians were great, except for the one sitting next to me who refused to talk because she didn't appreciate that I was on the panel. And she
Love that.
I was getting all the questions.
Yeah.
It was about raw feeding. And I'm a raw feeder. And so, and I'm answering the questions, and the other veterinarians are like, yeah, she's not wrong. And so she was just sitting there like mad. And then the second day, her partner just came up and announced, I refuse to stand here and talk to this person. And so she kept over talking. So when someone would ask me a question, she would answer it. And when she was done, people would look to me, and I was just like, with all due respect, that I disagree. And this is what I've learned. And so she went into, and then what was funny is that they were exotic animal veterinarians. So they were veterinarians that believed in feeding species appropriate diets because
except for dogs.
Yeah, they didn't treat cats and dogs. So it's just like, that's all I'm doing. I'm doing what you practice. It's just that I'm doing it with the cat and the dog, and you are mad.
Which, Kimberly, I don't know if you've realized this. I've just realized this recently, is no one has practiced medical cannabis on pets longer than me.
Wow.
So, Kimberly, you have been practicing raw feeding and food therapy and food medicine for longer than most of these vets have.
Yeah.
So I don't care who the fuck you are or who you think you are, just because you're a vet. And let me tell you, I know what you were taught as a vet. I've been into the vet schools and have taught cannabis and saw the posters all over the walls and how you're given the free food and you're brainwashed. And I know that you're going to be great when my dog needs something taken out or put back together. And I know what you're good at, but you're not taught anything about food and nutrition. And you're not taught anything about the endocannabinoid system. You're not taught about traditional Chinese medicine, or these things that have been used for thousands and thousands of years with incredible success. So wonderful. I love you. You're great. But a conventional vet, I have no freaking use for.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you and I can find out answers and treat our animals without us having any training, when these conventional vets have to continue to learn.
Yeah.
How do you ignore when you hear dogs, thriving and breaking records? How do you ignore that? How do you ignore your person who's come in and said, I've been in my old vet who called herself East West. I've been in the waiting for her to come see me and hear people asking about CBD in the waiting room. And how do you not have the answers or point them in the right direction or something?
Yeah.
Everybody knows about it.
It's interesting because my regular vet, she's integrative. She'll send people to me when she gets people come in and they're asking about raw feeding. She'll say, I don't feed raw. I don't know enough about raw to advise you.
Perfect answer.
Other clients does feed raw. And so I'm going to send you to her website, and, you can talk to her. And then if you want to have questions after that, we can talk. And I so appreciate that. I used to do workshops here locally, and they were in our little town, Marysville, in our flyer. And when they announced the first one, the city of Marysville got tons of emails from veterinarians about how dangerous it was. And so they reached out to a girlfriend of mine who is here local, very respected. And they were like, Kimberly, right? Is she? And my girlfriend was like, no, she knows everything that she's doing. She's perfectly fine. And so they let me go ahead and do it. And even though the workshops were all small, I try to keep them to like 5 or 6 people. They were well attended, and I should probably start doing them again, but they were very well attended because people wanted to know how to do it. In fact, I got an email from one of my friends who's a police officer. His canine was retired, and so he's going to put him on a raw diet now. And I'm like so excited because when he first got the canine, he got promoted. So his canine has been retired. But when he first got his dog Oso, I helped him put him on a raw diet then because his dog was having digestive issues. And they were at a case. My partner, Johan, he is a retired detective. So they were at a case together, and they just started talking about the dogs, as dog lovers do. It quickly goes to the poop. What's the poop like?
That's right.
And I'm so proud of Johan for the conversation. But Johan gave him my phone number and told him to call me, and he did. And I was just like, well, let me call Darwin's and see if we can get you guys some free food. And Darwin's, they went above and beyond. They gave him like 6 months of food, treats, everything.
Wow.
And he saw an immediate improvement, but he was just like, I can't keep this up on my own. And so he didn't. And I was just sort of like, that's fine. Go back to kibble. Just start adding fresh food. Whenever you cook for yourself, give some of that to your dog. Just leave the seasoning out and you'll be good to go. But now that his dog is retired, he sent me a long text message about, what about this brand and I was just like, because he has a baby in the house too. And he was just like, I was like, he wants to feed Northwest Naturals. And I was like, perfect. It's HPP. So you can tell your wife that, hey, this has been sterilized. So it's perfect. You're good to go. And he's going to do it. And I'm like so excited and happy just for his dog. It's like,
it means he never forgot that first lesson, kind of thing. I get it.
People too. I mean, I've spoken to other, deputies and about their dogs, they've come my way, and even people like in our town, I've actually had someone follow me into the grocery store. And when I realized he was following me, I was just like, oh my God, you're following. He was like, yeah. He's like, I'm so sorry. I know you're Kimberly. And he was like, and Keep the Tail Wagging. And the only thing, and I'm just sitting here, I couldn't be like, oh, you recognize me. I was just sitting here like, I'm going to die someday because I'm completely clueless. This man is following me and I'm like, doo-doo-doo-doo in my life.
See, I grew up in Miami, Florida, so that doesn't exist. I always think I'm being followed. We're going to get broken into. Matter of fact, when I moved to Tampa and the helicopter went over the first time, I was like, hey, we got to lock the doors. They're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, they're looking for somebody. They're looking for like, Angie, it's just a helicopter.
Okay, so in Marysville, I hear a helicopter and I'm going outside looking up going, oh my God, there's a helicopter.
Yeah, see?
Just the difference.
Again, why I want to move to your state.
But it is, it's fun. And, to get back to, your specialty, oil, as we've been all over the world in this conversation.
But it's so important, Kimberly, because a CBD oil is absolutely going to help anybody, but it isn't going to cure or turn your dog's health around without the right diet. It just isn't. And so I don't think one should be talked without the other because they really do go hand in hand. Because you're just kind of like battling or keeping something at bay when you could bring them back to health by doing it. We know the immune system lives in the gut, so you're helping it on all angles. Real food, real plant medicine. It's just, that's why I love talking to raw feeders and fresh food people, because we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Even how the food manufacturers are making the food wrong, same thing with how they're making the medicine wrong, kind of thing.
Speaking of which, we need to talk about that study, Erin.
Which study? I feel like there's been a couple of them lately.
Well, Susan talked about it. I actually recorded a video that I need to edit today about it. But the study that came out, pet food industry had a little short, I wouldn't even call it an article. It's just a blurb about the study, 200 and something puppies. There were 16-week-old puppies in the UK, and tying the bacteria in their stool to a UTI in humans. I mean, I didn't dig into the study. Joseph Powell, Krista's husband, did, and we had a conversation about it. And it's sad and pathetic because when you dig deeper into the study, when you read the article, you're just sort of like, this doesn't sound right.
Right.
But when you dig into the study, it's even worse because someone paid money for this and they decided to twist it around to come to a conclusion that would get, and create a clickbait article about it. And it's basically saying, I think the title of the article was something to the effect of like raw feeding has been connected to like a bacterial infection in humans or something like that. And it's just like, so basically you're saying, trigger warning, but you're basically saying that UK dog owners are picking up their dog's stool, not washing their hands, and then
wiping themselves
in a way to get a urinary tract infection. I mean, and what it was there was one human that had a urinary tract infection that somehow inspired them to do an entire study. And when you break down, how many dogs were raw fed, how many dogs lived on a farm or had visited a farm, how many dogs, were on antibiotics. already. And what were they on? How many dogs were sick? How many humans were sick? I mean, so many questions were not asked. They just basically went far enough to be able to fashion out a conclusion that they wanted, and then they stopped. And it's just sort of like, I feel like whoever is behind these type of things, I feel like they haven't realized that people are waking up. I
hope so.
Yeah, we already don't trust the media. We're having trouble trusting our government.
Well, they're doing it as a marketing tool.
Yes.
Not to actually see, find out something.
Well, this reminds me of this whole event that you have coming up. Speaking of, pharmaceutical companies and bad science and paying, science for hire to get what you want, to tell doctors what to do. This is all like one of my crusades in life, it's like science for hire and bad science. So tell us about the Do No Harm event.
You bet. Dr. Josie Bug and Dr. Sarah Urban and we kept talking about it, and it kept showing its ugly head of the over-prescribing of antibiotics, steroids, pharmaceuticals for pets, multiple ones that are causing so much issue. And I kind of just said to him, I'm like, isn't that like literally your oath?
Do no harm.
It's literally your oath. So why is this happening? Why is it such a problem? So with the opioid epidemic that humans suffer from, dogs and our cats are suffering from the same thing. So basically it's an event with like 5 or 6 of the nation's best holistic veterinarians and some experts that are basically going to talk about, instead of this, do this. Or did you know that this also, here's a natural way to treat cancer, pain, seizures, and it's proven in the research there. It's just, I feel like we're getting further away from it, and that this information isn't out there. And I think people need to hear from holistic veterinarians that have been practicing for over 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. So they're going to know. They've been actually practicing with these modalities. And every time I get to say, I kept Nina's cancer from spreading for 26 months, they're like, oh, that's incredible. I had a dog that I did it for 20 months or 18 months, or I had a dog that I actually cured their blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever hears about that. We don't hear about that. What we hear is your dog has 4 to 6 months to live. Mm-hmm. So I want people to know, I mean, I know, Kimberly, you went through the same thing. When you get that cancer diagnosis or whatever that diagnosis is, and you start doing your research, you realize your options are limited. And most of the time what you're offered is something that's really expensive, and that your dog is only going to prolong its life 4 to 6 months. And those 4 to 6 months aren't good 4 to 6 months. Yeah. So we're all about doing no harm and only helping them, which usually means just helping their immune system fight off whatever it is, because your dog doesn't know it has cancer. Yeah. And, keeping him comfortable and happy and living a normal life for as long as possible is what we think is number one. So the event's September 22nd. It's called Do No Harm, and we're just going to tackle the topics, and it's free for anyone who wants to attend. It'll be online, and tune in. And there is a paid option if you want to actually chat with the vets while it's going on and having them answer your questions directly. And there'll be some PDFs on guides on how to use some of these things that they're going to tell you about. But yeah, there literally is, I know you do the same thing, Kimberly, where everything from acupuncture to chiropractic to laser, there's so many things that are easy that only help them be more comfortable and help them fight off whatever it is. So I think a lot of us don't know about it, and I think it's being kept from us. So I wanted people to hear it from doctors who've been practicing it for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm so excited. I already took the day off from my day job so that I could pay attention and not just have it on in the background,
I love the idea of not only just exposing and educating people about these drugs, because it's like, I saw a discussion on Facebook where, It was about, I can't remember which veterinarian it was, but she was just, well, what are your thoughts on steroids? And so many comments about, no, this is bad. I would never do this to my dog. And I just sort of like, no, there's a place for everything. It's
Absolutely.
not about the steroid. The steroids aren't bad. The antibiotics aren't bad. It's the
overuse of them, or the incorrect or the misuse of them.
I mean, and we talked about in the past episode about testing, which I didn't even know that this was a thing, where you can test to make sure you're using the right antibiotics. And, people don't know that. And it's just like, I think it's so important to give us the tools to be able to ask the questions when we are speaking to our vet.
Because there are bad players in every industry, including veterinarians. There's going to be bad veterinarians and there's going to be good veterinarians. And I hate when people hear me say, look, your veterinarian wasn't taught anything about food and nutrition. Your conventional veterinarian doesn't know anything about the endocannabinoid system. And they're like, hey, don't bash veterinarians. I'm not bashing veterinarians. Yeah. I am celebrating the integrative and holistic veterinarians who go over and beyond to learn and continue to learn and do what's best for your pet. My problem is with the conventional veterinarians who don't know better, who haven't gotten that additional training, who don't know what to do when your dog comes in with diarrhea or is barfing, and the only thing they know how to do is write a prescription for something that's going to make it worse. Yeah. And the reason I say this is because I lost my first dog at 7, because I did everything that the conventional vet told me to do, and those things are what ended her life. So she was giving nonstop antibiotics and steroids until she couldn't take it anymore. And when we got an autopsy, irritable bowel was the only thing that was listed. But I know now. I fed her the Purina kibble. I vaccinated her every single year. I put those flea and tick meds on her. I killed my dog. And now I know better. And now it will never happen again. And I will spend the rest of my life preaching and telling everybody that I know to trust your freaking gut. Don't do just what the doctor says. They're, unprofessional, or people who care or don't care in every industry, in every occupation. So we just have to find the good person that is aligned, that is there for your pet, that will listen to you, that will respect you, even if they think you're wrong. There's a way to still be respectful and to talk to people. Yeah. And I know it's hard to be a vet. I can't imagine. I'm kind of glad that I didn't end up being one. But at the same time, I love that I get to work with some of these amazing vets and that I get to teach them something. I know everything about cannabis and the endocannabinoid system, and I'm going to share that with as many veterinarians who will let me teach them and show them. And I think it's a beautiful thing, and I want to celebrate those veterinarians.
And what I like about this, you hear so many, whether it's more conventionally based vets or people who are trusting the guidance of their conventionally based vets, is kind of like, well, show me the science or show me the data. And so I like having this event where it's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I don't have the pharmaceutical company money behind me to publish all of this stuff. And I don't even think vets really keep up with that stuff. I know human doctors barely, don't even keep up with that stuff most of the time, and I look at like my veterinarian who, she practiced, conventionally for a long time. And when she went through her own health issue.
Yep, that happens a lot.
Yes, it turned out to be caused by mold in her home. She has mold illness, and that she suddenly was like, oh my God, what are we doing? And she has totally re-educated herself and, become a holistic integrative, vet now. And, and it's I wish more people didn't have to go through it, but that does seem to be the common story that you hear, either with their own health or something in their dog's health wasn't responding and they go and find this. But anyway, I just love the idea of having this opportunity to share the real stories of the people who have really been treating this way for a very long time.
Yep, me too. I think it's important because I don't think we hear the stories, and they're not the ones standing out being the loudest. Right. They're the ones that are actually doing. But the more more friends I have, the more vets I hang out with, the more I listen to. The one of the reasons I go to the HVMA is because I just get to sit at a table of 12 of them and just go, because it's amazing. But you learn, you just have to learn, and you learn what they go through and what their struggles are. You also learn a lot about the industry, because a lot of them are in this because they want to help animals. And those are the ones that we want as our vets. And they'll tell you about their experiences getting out of school and who they worked for and the conventional doctors. And you will be appalled. Your mind will be blown. So anytime someone tries to say, hey, Angie, you're bashing vets, I'm like, let me tell you some stories about some stories I know from some vets that shared some stories about what other vets did and how they were brave enough, a lot of them being women, brave enough to contact the vet board and get some of these vets' licenses taken away from some of the practices. But I'm just going to give you one little thing that blows your mind. The vaccinations expire. So when a conventional vet office goes and sees that they're going to have a whole batch of vaccines expire soon, you're going to get a little postcard in the mail saying it's time for you to come in and get your vaccinations, or your flea and tick, or your whatever it is. So just things like that, where you realize none of that was in the best interest of my animal. It was
A business decision.
or your animal's sick and you come to this office and the best drug for your dog, they don't have in stock. They carry these drugs. So you get those drugs prescribed to you instead of what is actually best for your dog, because that's what they got. And they got to sell them, and they're going to make money off of them. So everything that happens in the human side, it's even worse in the pet side. So it does take a lot of work. But what's so great is that you literally can take your favorite vet that you follow online, whether it's I don't think you can get a consult with Becker, but if it's, Morgan or Ava Frick or Sarah Urban or Dr. Bug, Ruth Roberts, all of them do telehealth now, which is awesome.
Yeah, I went to the I always forget what it's called, but the Dogs Naturally magazine, their summit. I think it was 2018. And I sat in Dr. Richard Patton's session, and I love him. And, talk about, when you get to sit down with people, I don't realize how big Keep the Tail Wagging is, because I'm just sitting at home.
Right.
Writing about my dogs and writing about my business. But when I go to these places and they know me and they invite me to dinner and I get to sit at a table with all these veterinarians talking. I mean, going to dinner with Billy, Jacqueline, and Roxanne is just, it blows your mind. You don't even have to speak. You just sit there eating, soaking in all of that knowledge. But I ran off to grab this book. Dr. Patton gave it to me.
I have that. Yeah.
And he
Oh, cool. I don't have that book. I need to get it.
Yeah, it's just so great. But he has such a great session. And one thing that he said that always stayed with me is that, we make mistakes. We made mistakes with our dogs. I made mistakes with Rodrigo and Sydney and stuff. But the thing about it is that we learn and we don't make it again. And with every dog, we do better. And that's when, because people were like, well, you have someone, their dog is always sick, but they won't switch to raw. What do you do? And he's like, you leave them alone, because what they'll do is they'll see you and your dog and then their dog. And the next time they're going to be calling you to say,
oh, they will. Yeah.
Help me get my dog on raw, because, I have a lot of friends whose dogs, all of our dogs are the same age and their dogs are gone. And my dogs, Rodrigo is still here. And so people are like, Rodrigo was the reason why I started Keep the Tail Wagging and started raw feeding, because he was such a sick puppy.
Wow.
And he's 12 and a half years old.
Well, I'm happy to say my, second schnauzer is 15. He's about to turn 16 in September. So I'm like, when people go, well, does feeding them raw work or not or whatever? I'm like, well, I just doubled the second dog's thing. Same thing. Neighbor got a dog. Same time I got Nina. His dog's been dead for 2 years. when you really start, when you're in the industry and you start going, oh, golden retrievers only live to the age 10 mark.
Mm-hmm.
How many don't make it to 10?
Yeah.
You're like, wow. And
And
how
I'm
quickly.
starting to hear that. A girlfriend of mine, she loves golden. She has 2 golden retrievers, and she was like, well, they don't live very long and they get cancer, so I'm going to feed raw. So she said, Kimberly, how do I get started on raw?
Right.
I started by telling her what I do, and she's like, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm like, well, here are the great brands in our fair state of Washington. And she's
well, I'm going to get to that point because I have a store. So all I do is use other people's stuff. But I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm just going to make their food because it's, do you know Dr. Kathy Alanovi?
She's the one that helped me get started on raw.
Yeah, I love her. And I said to her, I'm like, I just got to see her because she lives near me. So I had her come over and give all the dogs adjustments. And I said, okay, let's talk about the pet food industry. What the hell are you even recommending anymore? And she goes, it's funny because she did the same thing I do. There's 5 foods dogs can't eat that humans can. And I go, that's what I say. She goes, just feed them what you're eating.
Yeah.
Just feed them what you're eating. I'm like, exactly. Cause I can't trust anybody. I can't keep up on it anymore. It's nuts. And then of course I'd sit there and I go, well, what about this one? And she's like, oh, you didn't hear the blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I can't keep up with it.
That's always the worst part is that because I'll be excited about something and then I'll get a text message from Billy going, I need to talk to you.
I know.
I'm like, damn it, Billy.
So I just realized we never said out loud the name of Dr. Patton's book. So I want to make sure we put a link in the show notes for everybody. It's Ruined by Excess, Perfected by Lack. Yeah. I'll make sure we have a link in the show notes.
Good. I should have invited him to that event. Maybe I still will.
He's amazing. He's such a sweet, sweet man.
So here's a question that I have regarding opioid usage in the veterinary world. So, for instance, in the crisis that we have in the human health, which I don't think I've ever talked about on here, but my family is personally affected by because my brother has been an addict for 20 years. And it all started after a surgery where he was given narcotics that were way, I think, over the top for what, he actually needed. Mm-hmm. And that happened when he was in high school. And,
God,
it's
I'm
like,
so sorry.
We've gone back and forth for 20 years now. So like, I always pay very close attention to this kind of issue. And when you start seeing how, pharmaceutical sales reps are pushing this and doctors are getting, kickbacks and things like that. Like, is that what happens in the veterinary world also? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not only does it happen with the pharmaceuticals, it happens with those flea and tick, all the flea and tick meds. They make, I don't even know how much they are, but let's say they're $50. They're probably making $25 off of it. So let's say the product's $50. They're making at least $25 off of it. Everything from the science diets bullshit. Remember, I'm a vet that hasn't been taught anything about diet and nutrition. And here comes a company that says, based on science, we have figured out all the diets that your dogs need. And I go, perfect. So you mean I actually get to go, oh, kidney issues, just feed them the kidney diet and I make money off of it? This is really, really great. Unfortunately, that's not how it went. That diet wasn't based on science and isn't going to help the dog with a kidney issue. How does a dried up kibble help a dog with kidney issues?
Yeah.
And I'm not no doctor, but I do have some common sense.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with so many people. When I don't do events anymore because it's just, I don't have a poker face. And so when I see fat dogs or if someone tells me something that's ridiculous, like, oh, well, I give my dog this organic kibble, all over my face. I mean, they basically have a conversation with my facial expressions.
Right.
All there. But I had someone telling me about, because I have a big sign that says, does your dog have allergies, to bring them in. And I talk to them about what I do with my dogs. And this woman was like, well, I put my dogs on heels and it works. And she's already defensive. And I just waited until she calmed down because it's like, I'm not going to yell at you. It's your dog. And I was just like, that's a Band-Aid. I was like, wouldn't you rather just cure the underlying problem? And, and she was just like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm talking about. And then we had a really great conversation. And it was just sort of like, oh, I never talked to my vet like this. And I'm like, try. I was like, and then again, not all vets are going to be open to it.
Right.
But one thing that I've learned is that, I respect your knowledge and I respect your experience. I was like, but this is where I'm coming from. And this is what I've learned. And this is what I'm doing. And you thought my dog was 4 years old. And, at the time, this is a conversation I had. I was like, he's 10.
Right.
You thought my dog was 4 years old. So obviously I'm doing something right. So can we let's just have a conversation.
There's a difference between treating the symptoms and getting to the cure.
Yeah.
And, in human health, you can go to functional medicine, which isn't always easy either. But yeah, it's trickier to find in veterinary care, I think, sometimes because even vets who are integrative or holistic, like
marketing, using it as a marketing tool instead. Yeah. It's kind of like the word organic or even the USDA bullshit symbol. Like, for instance, what people don't know is that if hemp is grown under the Farm Bill, it is grown organically. It's, it has to be grown a certain way under the Farm Bill. But people go ahead and get that USDA designation so they can put it on their label so that you can think. So that if mine's sitting next to another one, they'll go, oh, that one's organic, this one's not. And you're like, yeah, nope, that's not it. So it's like just another marketing thing. It's hard.
Even with food, like we go to our local farm and they are not considered USDA organic because you have to do like a whole process and pay a lot of money to become organic. But they're cleaner food than what is allowed under organic standards because there are certain chemicals and things that are allowed and still be considered organic. And so, you even really have to do your homework on that stuff too.
I know. Thank God for you girls. Like literally, I remember looking up ketogenic diet. And the only person that I could find with information, because I was trying to send people to a blog to tell them about ketogenic diet, was yours, Kimberly. Because everything else was by a company and was skewed trying to sell something. And I was like, well, this is the only one that actually explains what it is so that I don't have to continuously. Because remember, you've never seen a protocol. Did I ever do a protocol for you? Like send one what I like we do for a consultation?
I don't think so.
Well, it says feed a ketogenic diet, and then ketogenic is highlighted and it goes to your blog.
Oh, nice. And I got that information, from Billy, and I'm losing names today, but that's what I miss about going to all of the events and stuff, because you sit down and you start talking to people and you pull together, because that's basically what we're doing. It's not like we're going like, oh, what movie did you see last? Right. We're talking about, what about, chaga mushrooms, and what about, we're having these like really silly, fun, nerdy conversations about all things dogs and cats. And it's fun. And by the time I get home, I'm like writing every single night. And like when I was at the Dogs Naturally event, I was live blogging every session.
Oh, awesome.
And they were just like, how are you doing? The cocoa therapy ladies were like, you got everything in there. And I'm just like,
I'm good at what I do.
I do. It's like, I'm taking notes and I'm typing and I'm just going and it's done. And it's just like, I miss going to that. So I'm looking forward to going to more and feeding my brain.
Good. Well, I hope to see you at some of them soon.
I know. I'm really looking forward to the Do No Harm event, though. I'm really just excited about that.
Good. Because I know that they're going to reveal things that I didn't even know or think about.
Exactly.
Because they've been practicing for so long. So I love it. Like PJ Broadfoot.
She's amazing. Yeah.
She's doing shit with cannabis. She's like, oh, Angie, I put it on the tip of the acupuncture needle and put it right into a point. And I'm like, yeah, I can't hurt. Awesome. Yeah, I love it. Sometimes they freak me out. I'm trying to remember. I have a new vet here who moved from Colorado to here who's holistic. So I'm having fun with her, but she's dabbling in stem cells, which scares the shit out of me because of Rodney's dog. And so she was like, do you want me to do stem cell on Nina? I'm like, no, we're good. I want to know. That's what I kept saying to everybody. I go, I want to be able to prove what I learned. I want to practice it and I want to watch it work. And it did. Now that we've done that, I will look at other things or add other things. But I wanted to be able to say that cannabis, diet, and mushrooms did the bulk of the work.
Yeah.
Everything else will be added and extra and great and helps. But yes, there's certain things that I'm still scared of that I'm like, yeah, not on my dog.
That's what I love about my holistic vet is she's very cognizant of when we're trying something new. It's like, when's his next chemotherapy appointment? Da, da, da. And so how much time do we have to see if this is actually working? Because we don't want to do it at the same time that we're doing chemo, because then we won't know what did what. And so,
you know what I would love to read from you is what you're doing. Okay. He goes to chemotherapy and what do you do after to help him detox after it kind of thing? Did you already and I just didn't, and I missed it?
No, I have something that I wrote, I think either earlier this year or last year, but it needs to be updated because the protocol is completely changed. It's like after I emailed you and I incorporated your protocol, I even had like a graph on my fridge that explained on this day we do this, and it broke down everything. And I have a PDF that I gave to people that they could use. And it's just like, this is what I'm doing. But once he came out of remission, that went away and we started a new one. And so I need to sit down. Maybe I'll do that today too. I need to sit down and document all of that out because it's completely different. It's a lot easier. And yeah, it's one of those where I love my oncologist. She's like really cool. Her name is Dr. Brittany Evans. I'll give her a little shout
I was going to say, because you know that oncology is new. It's only like 5-6 years old in the veterinary space.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And it sounds like what's her name? Brittany what?
Brittany Evans. Because
I'll list her on Nina's blog because I only list Pope and Huzzah. Mm-hmm. So I'll list her too as a
she's traditional, but she's just open and she educates. And what I love is that she's open, she educates me, but she summarizes everything we talk about and sends me an email. So that I don't have to, I'm not taking notes and frantically trying to remember. I call and just leave a message saying, talk to someone and say, hey, can you ask her this? And I will get a call back from someone saying, I talked to Dr. Evans. This is what she asked us. I mean, she has made this process so amazing. She loves my dog and she's just like, he's such a good boy. And whenever anything changes, her question is he eating okay? Is he pooping okay? Is he still active? Is he still scout? And if I say yes to all of that, and she's like, then we're good to go. And I love that she's not making me race in for medications and she'll tell me, she's like, his liver values were a little off. And I'm like, okay, I'll adjust that. She wanted to recommend a supplement. And I was like, nope, I got that. And I told her what I was giving. And she's like, okay, sounds good to me. And next time she checked it, she's like, his liver values are great. And so it's a collaborative effort, which I so much appreciate.
Yeah, no, I like when they can, there's going to be the customers that are certain that aren't going to listen or take a few things out. And then there's us. Mm-hmm. Then there's us. We're different. We're listening. We're listening really closely.
So. The alternative dog moms.
Yes,
that's right.
We do.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, Angela, thank you so much for your time today.
You bet. This was fun. I wish we could do it on a more regular basis because it's a great way to catch up with you girls too.
Now that she said it.
I was like, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
She said, we heard her.
I would love to. I'm like, feel like I'm in my girl gang here and I can say anything and won't be judged.
We're more than happy to have you back.
I crushed this leaf up and I rubbed it on it and it went away. And you guys are like, yeah, okay. That. Okay, what was it?
And where was the leaf?
Exactly.
And when you did you use a mortar and pestle?
Right, exactly. Didn't even do it that fancy. Yeah, I agree. I love that. You're talking the same language and you don't have to explain anything. I love it. You're just sharing stories of, oh, did you hear this one? Or did you hear this?
It's just, it's fun. And that's, it's when people get so overwhelmed. I feel so sad for them because same like with cancer, I've done a few videos recently where it's like, all of you guys who are getting a cancer diagnosis and you're crawling into your bed and crying for 4 days, y'all need to knock that shit off. And it's like, this is not the time to start mourning your dog who doesn't know he has cancer and is just living his life. And it's like, it's hard to have that mind shift. And it took me some time, but once I got it, man, everything changed. Everything. And you said earlier, both of you have talked about how learning from your dogs, and using what you're learning for your own health. And I did the same thing for, by focusing on my dogs and basically being happy, because it's like, that's going to be good for their immune system too. I even told my partner, like, I was just like, I forgot what he was doing. I was like, y'all, you need to knock that shit off because you're pissing me off. And it's like, and we got a dog with cancer and he can't have all this stuff. And he was just like, yeah, you're right. I read about that too. And I'm like, thank you. So
awesome.
I'm going for a walk to calm down and you need to go do this. And then we can come back and be happy. And, but it's just like, it's amazing because hasn't cured my anxiety and depression. It's still there, but it's just like in a room in the back, chilling, and it's one of those things where, gosh, this is fun. I know that it can feel overwhelming. It can feel complicated, but it can also be really fun, especially when something works, because that's all it takes. One thing working.
Yeah, I feel very powerful.
Yeah,
you should.
That I was able to do what so far I haven't met a single veterinarian was able to do, and I haven't met another person who was able to do it. I think more and more people are going to be able to do it now that they're not scared of using hemp and THC for their pet. We're going to have more people that we're going to hear about the success. But yeah, I feel very, I was already getting rid of the easy cancers, that were popping up on these dogs. So it is, you really can do amazing things. So cool.
Yeah, it's groundbreaking and it's a legacy,
Absolutely.
Good. I know. That's what I'm glad is that she'll live on forever and be an example.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Angela.
You bet. Thank you for having me, girls. I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.